Welcome, everybody. It's episode 9 of the Constant Geekery podcast. Nice to have you along for the ride. This will be our last Zoom podcast, Pete, because we're out of lockdown next week.
Hopefully we are.
That means we have to sit in the same room together, look at each other, smell each other. It's not a winner.
That's conjured up images I don't want to think about.
No, absolutely not. Let's roll the intro. So let's get on with the most important thing of the week, which is our drinking activity for the podcast. And this week I'm staying on the whiskey trip. I'm enjoying some Glenlivet today. This is the
good choice.
Founder's Reserve, Pete, with the American Oak Selection. It's selective use of first fill American oak casks. And it does indeed taste a little bit oaky, and it is very pleasant.
That's a good use of oak casks, I feel. So an excellent choice there. I'm following on from a suggestion of a few comments from a podcast a few weeks ago. I've actually got some Miles Tea, which is a local tea producer. This is loose leaf tea, and it's Russian Caravan, and it's quite nice. It's a lovely flavour. Not sponsored by Miles, but I do like their tea. And also, I know you had an issue last week with the capacity of my 2-litre Vimto glass, so you'll be pleased to know that I've got this little teacup this evening to have my drink in.
Very dainty, Pete. Very dainty.
So I'm just going to
and a teapot,
which is full of tea. So
and you're spilling it everywhere as well, I can see.
Yeah, absolutely, all over my microphone as well. No, don't worry, not really, just the frame.
Marvellous.
So yes.
Well, thanks for that, Pete. And I hope that whilst you're drinking your tea, you will indeed apply the proper procedure with the pinky out, please. Thank you. So if you happen to watch and listen to the podcast using the delights of YouTube, it's youtube.com/constantgeekery, then you can indeed see Pete drinking tea with his pinky out. I mean, does life get any better than that?
Can you get more British? I don't think you can.
I don't know. I mean, this is quality content, isn't it? Quality entertainment. Wonderful. So something else that I'm doing today, Pete, is I've got some more cufflinks on. A few people have made comments about my use of cufflinks, and it seems pretty clear to me that wearing cufflinks adds at least 10 IQ points. So
yeah. Again, it's a very sophisticated thing to do. I do like to rock the odd pair of cufflinks. I'm not this evening. I'm slumming it because it's a Sunday evening. But they do suit you.
Thank you. So that's good. And not tech news so much, but some very sad news for geeks of the world. And many of the geeks in the world like to watch the Star Wars. I am not a fan of the Star Wars. I have tried watching it. On every occasion I've tried, I fall asleep. So it's obviously not for me, but I know a lot of people do love it, including yourself, Pete.
Yes, I do.
But of course, very sad news that Dave Prowse died. That is a shame. And for those who don't know, Dave Prowse played Darth Vader. He was the guy in the costume. He was a British bodybuilding champion, actually. And he's well known in Britain because he also played the part of something called the Green Cross Code Man, and possibly just a touch before our time, Pete. But for kids growing up, the Green Cross Code Man helped children cross the road safely in Britain, and Dave Prowse did that.
Yeah,
a lovely man, hailing from Bristol.
Bristol, that's right. I actually met him once.
Did you?
Yeah.
I used to work for one of the companies that I worked for doing web development. We did his website for a while. He was indeed a very, very pleasant chap.
Yeah, he was. I met him in Waterstones once in Taunton, of all places. He was signing books in there a few years ago. And he was a very cordial, friendly chap. So a great loss.
Of course, he wasn't really heard in the movie. Well, he wasn't heard at all because James Earl Jones was used to overdub. But there are recordings out there of Dave Prowse doing the part with his lovely West Country Bristolian accent.
They are.
Pete, I imagine you could maybe recite a line from the movie in a Bristolian accent for our listeners.
I wish you'd give me some. I got to think of a Darth Vader line now. Gert Lush, get Get yourself... No, that's it. Do not underestimate the power of the Force, isn't it? Gertlash.
I imagine to an American listening, they probably won't be able to differentiate between our accent and what you just did. But there we go. If you're of a British persuasion, then you'll know what we're talking about. Bristol, only 50 miles up the road from us, so he was a local boy to us. So sorry to see you gone, Dave Prowse.
And just also, I know this is going on quite a long time. I'm really sorry about this, but a few people had issues with my clock. And the fact that throughout the podcast, in the last few lockdown podcasts, it has stayed on the same time. So the eagle-eyed of you will notice that it is now on a different time.
So you've changed the battery?
No, I've just changed the time.
Excellent. Thanks for that. Perhaps a few more views, we will indeed be able to afford that AA battery for you, Pete. And actually, good news on that. We're trying to get to 10,000 subs on YouTube by the end of the year, and we're more than 3/4 of the way there now. So that's pretty good.
Brilliant. Thanks ever so much to everyone who's subscribed. Really appreciate that.
Absolutely. Yeah, we do. And I wanted to start off the podcast. So what we're going to talk about this week, we haven't even told anybody what we're talking about. It's going to be Apple Silicon based. We just want to talk about some of our plans for testing and maybe answering some of the comments that we've had on YouTube regarding the videos that we've produced. And just kind of let you guys know what we've got coming up. But before that, we did promise to tell you about the MacBook Air delivery. So I will indeed do that. Now, when the Apple event happened, the Apple Silicon event, immediately after the event, I tried to log into our special Apple Business e-commerce website, but it hadn't been updated yet. So I just went and bought the Mac Mini straight away off the retail site. And then, as you know, the following day, we decided actually we'd better get a MacBook Air as well. So I put that through our normal special portal where we get a discount. Not much discount, but we do get a discount. And nothing happened. That order never got updated. And we got to the point where it's like, well, the Mac Mini's coming and we still don't know when the MacBook Air is going to be shipped. And that's going to slow down the videos. And I just happened to be looking on Amazon. And I saw the identical model for not much more than our discounted price available for next day delivery. So I let our Apple business rep know, and she said, I'll tell you what, lots of people are doing this, ordering off Amazon, and some of them have found it doesn't actually get delivered on time. So just leave the order open because it's not scheduled to ship actually until Friday. And make sure your Amazon delivery comes, and then phone us up to cancel it. Right?
Yeah, I'm with you so far.
So I ordered the new MacBook Air, which got delivered to your house, and I got the notification. And I would like to just say, actually, Pete, it got delivered by
Hermes.
And you gave Hermes some grief last week, and they delivered it on time.
I did. Well done, Hermes, for successfully delivering one parcel.
So I got the notification saying that it had been delivered. So I phoned up the number, and what you get is an automated service. And it says, tell me what you want. So I said, well, I want to cancel an order. Okay, tell me the order number. So I read out the order number to the computer. And it pauses, whilst it goes off and does computery things. That's the technical term, computery things. And I swear this is no word of a lie. After maybe 1 or 2 seconds, my email went ping, and I got a shipment notification for the very order that I was trying to cancel. And then a second or two after that, the computerized voice comes back and basically says, that order's already been shipped, so you can't cancel it. Now,
surely that's just a coincidence.
It's quite some coincidence. I don't believe it's coincidence. I believe that there's a huge queue of people and they're shipping them out, and they know that if someone phones up to cancel it, the best thing to do is ship it straight out the door.
Yeah.
And they probably assume that the average person is not going to then complain and send it back.
Which we're not obviously the average person, so I'm guessing you sent that bad boy right back.
Well, no, I didn't actually, but this one was scheduled to be delivered by DPD, and DPD in the UK are pretty much the best logistics company. And they did deliver it on the day they said they would deliver it, but it didn't come until about 9:30 at night.
Okay.
It was supposed to come at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. Anyway, I left it there in its box whilst we decided what to do with it. So we actually have 2 of these flipping MacBook Airs, both in the gold color as well, which our staff pretty much universally hate. And
do they really?
Yeah, I think so. No one's that keen on it. I think maybe one of our staff has a gold one. Anyway, another member of our staff, who shall remain nameless for now, it may need an upgrade at some point. So we figured we may as well just keep hold of that. But in the meantime, we'll give it to our sysadmin, Jordan, and he's going to do some testing on it, actually, and test it from a development point of view, which we'll talk about in a sec. So yeah, that's the story of how Apple very cleverly, it would seem, have their automated systems set up to ensure that you don't cancel your order.
I'd be interested to see if anyone else has found that.
Well, if you're brave enough to risk cancelling your order, then if you think you might get it quicker. But please don't blame me if it all goes wrong.
No, always order one from Amazon first to make sure it's come before you do. Then go and get your second one.
Dear.
Brilliant.
Crazy. Anyway.
So what are we doing? What else? That was highly amusing. But what's the plan for tonight's podcast, Dave?
So I want to talk about our plans for testing these machines. So far, what we've done is 3 videos. So we wanted to do some basic benchmarks and initial reactions to each of the machines.
Yep.
And then on Friday last week, we put out another video where we actually went into the studio because it was the only way to do it, which is within the lockdown rules, before anyone calls us on that. And we did it in as safe way as we possibly could. But we got those machines out and we wanted to work on them in anger, actually do an edit, and we wanted to talk about it and, again, relate our real world experiences with these devices. So that's kind of all we've done so far, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's been an enormous amount of work already.
It has. So here's what we want to do next. So first of all, some showdowns. And we've got, some people will know this because they're regular viewers of the channel, but Pete and I, back in 2011, set up a web development studio and digital marketing agency. So that's our day job. We run that business, or we help run that business. Actually, a chap called Tom does all of the heavy lifting these days, and he does a superb job of it. I've got to say that just in case he's listening. Can't exactly say on the podcast he's a load of rubbish, can I?
No, just keep that to yourself.
Yeah, we definitely won't say that.
No.
So we've got access to quite a few different machines because our developers like to work on Apple. So what sort of machines have we got?
iMacs. We've got iMacs. We've got MacBook Pros in the 13 and the 15 and the 16-inch varieties of various vintages, shall we say. MacBook Airs, again, of various vintages. I don't think we've got any Mac Minis, actually. I was about to say Mac Mini. I think maybe we've got one in our test department, possibly. But
I think there is an old one, a dual core i5 kicking around somewhere.
Yeah, so pretty much a kind of a good slice of Apple history from the last 10 years, really. Some of it's not in regular use, but it is still there. And beyond, actually, because you've got your old G4 Mac and a few other bits, haven't you? Yeah,
we've got a few 5.1 Mac Pros as well. I've obviously got a 2013 Mac Pro, the trash can, which is my main machine. So we do have a decent range of equipment, and with the 13-inch MacBook Pros, we've got the two-port model and the 4-port model. So we do have a good selection of different computers to use. So
we've even got some Asus laptops, some Windows laptops as well.
We have.
I don't know if we want to show down on those.
Test them.
Yeah, probably not a winner.
I do think we should include a PC in the showdowns because I think it will be interesting. And I've got a gaming machine with a Ryzen 7 2700X in it. Mm-hmm. So not the latest Ryzen by any stretch, but I was going to say comparable to the M1. It's not really. It's faster, but It'd be faster on multi-core, slower on single-core, usual story. But
Wait. Did you say that there's something out there in the whole wide world that's faster than M1?
yeah, I think we are going to come to that later in the podcast. Some people are talking about this this computer in sort of messianic terms, really, and I think that's a little bit of a stretch, but we will come back to that.
Colour me intrigued.
Yeah. So we'll pick out, I think, a few of these machines, maybe 5 machines, and we'll do some showdowns. So we'll do benchmarks, the various different things that we've done. We'll try and put together a timeline for Final Cut and DaVinci so that we can get some render times. And we're basically compiling a big spreadsheet, basically, of all of this data. And we'd like to then produce some charts. So people are asking us, where are all the charts, guys? Well, we haven't done yet. Producing charts takes time, and we need to do the testing ourselves. We don't really want to just use other people's results, do we, Pete?
No. It's important that we can stand by our data and we can warrant it almost that is what we found personally.
That's sort of where we want to go with the channel. So you just have to bear with us. If we're not doing it quickly enough, then apologise for that. What we will do is we'll put up a web page and we'll make our data available for download. And if we produce some test files or some test footage, perhaps we could make those available for download as well. I assume we can do that. And you can try it yourself and see what sort of results you get.
Sounds
so
like
that kind of that takes care of that. But when we actually do that, I don't know. It will be within the next few weeks. So we'll stagger these videos. I imagine there'll be more than one of these showdown videos. So we haven't planned it out yet, I think is what I'm saying. We haven't got a timeline of events or anything like that. We'll just do what we can and put the content up and hope you guys really enjoy it. So something else that we want to test, and I kind of alluded to this already, is developer testing. So this is something that lots of people have asked, although not so much in the comments now, Pete. I noticed there were a lot of people asking it before Apple Silicon was released, asking how they were going to work for development. But anyway, we're going to test that. Like I said, yesterday I dropped the second MacBook Air around to our systems administrator, Jordan, and he was indeed most excited to have a play. And I got an excitable text message from him as well, telling me that he was already hitting snags, actually installing Homebrew. So be interested to see what happens with that. Jordan has his own YouTube channel that he started, and we're going to help him plug that a little bit. And he's going to film a segment which we'll put into a video, which will be all about development. Because I've got to say, I am a developer, Pete, but it's true to say I've been off the tools for a little while.
Yeah. You are a developer of legend, I think it's fair to say. But as with all good legends, there comes a point where you need to hang up your tools, you're
basically saying I'm past it.
No, I'm saying that's what you said. But yeah, you're not doing it day to day. Whereas Jordan's very much in the thick of it. He's obviously configuring machines and sorting through things, sorting through challenges and support for our customers and for our internal teams as they need things doing in new machines configuring. So he's a good all-rounder to be able to assess a machine like this for development use, which, as you say, we've not had so many comments on recently. But naturally, a lot of particularly developers in the web and digital age sort of industry do tend to favour Mac. I'm not saying all, but do tend to favour it. So I'm sure many would be interested with his findings. So I'm very excited to hear that. He's a lovely chap, and it would definitely be nice to see him on the channel presenting his thoughts.
Yeah, whilst perhaps doing some knitting as well.
He does like some knitting.
You won't understand that reference yet, but you will.
And leathercraft.
That's it. Excellent. So we'll look forward to sharing that with you as soon as it's ready. So something else we want to test is Logic. So Logic Pro, which is a music production suite, audio production suite. It actually predates the Mac. Logic was originally, I'm sure it was available on PCs as well, and then Apple bought it, and all the Logic users then had to buy into Mac, and now they're kind of stuck in the Mac ecosystem, and they possibly don't want to be because it costs a lot of money. Lots of people asking about testing of Logic Pro, so let me just let you know what we've got planned. And I need to preface this. I mean, I do play music and I do record music, but I haven't done it for a little while. I am a bit rusty with Logic, so I just want to say that up front. Lots of people are asking about testing plugins, but also testing peripherals. So, for example, I've got a PreSonus FaderPort 8 digital mixing desk, which is a USB thing. There's audio interfaces, so I've got 2 different audio interfaces that I'm going to try. We're going to run the benchmark that I've done previously on this channel with the 2013 Mac Pro, and I'll run some comparisons with that machine because it seems a lot of you are interested to know, can an M1 Mac Mini hold its own against the trash can Mac, which is very popular with audio professionals, or it was at least. So that's kind of the gist of the testing that I want to do. I would actually like a bit of help from the listeners or the viewers, and you can get in touch with us through the YouTube page. If you have a look on the business page, you'll find our email address. I could do with having a complex file to test, a complex orchestral score, something that only uses the standard Logic sound library. I don't want to be installing loads of different sound libraries. If you've got anything like that that's really going to push the machine, get in touch, please, because we could do with having that for testing. That'd be great. I do just want to say, Pete, sorry, go on.
Well, I was just going to say, I've got no experience with Logic Pro. The last time I touched any music software was back in the day with my Atari ST. In fact, something at the back of my head is saying that Logic was something that came from Atari, but I could be completely wrong on that. I'm not entirely sure. But I do like mucking about a bit with GarageBand, which I think is basically Logic Pro Lite, isn't it? No, I'm just kidding. But again, I'd be interested in having a play with that. So if anyone's got anything that's particularly challenging in terms of a GarageBand project, again, if you can whiz that, if you can get in touch with us and whiz us something over, then it'll be interesting to see that, simply because the MacBook Air is definitely aimed at the type of people who would be using GarageBand more than Logic Pro. So again, just useful to have if you've got something.
Yeah, it's a really good shout, Pete, because a lot of people progress. They start off with GarageBand and then they'll progress to Logic. So I think that's a really good shout, so that we can see what the performance is like in both systems. I do just want to say though, I've been using Logic for a long time on lots of different Apple Mac computers, including that Mac Mini we mentioned earlier, the old dual core
one.
Yeah. And I have to say, actually, I did occasionally have problems with that one, but it was quite rare. For most average amateur home recording peeps, if you're just recording some guitar tunes, doing a bit of vocals, adding some synths and other bits, for most people, you don't need to be concerned about the performance of these machines. Pretty much any Mac out there of the current generation or recent generations is going to serve your needs. In all likelihood, you only need to worry if you're using a lot of plugins and effects and you're not offloading those to a separate DSP, or if you're running huge amounts of software instruments. And I do mean a lot. Even the 13-inch MacBook Pro I've got here can handle over, I can't remember what it was when I tested it. I'm sure it was 24, 25 software instrument tracks with plugins as well, running and effects. You've got to be doing something quite heavy to be worried about the performance. So I just wanted to say that in case anyone's
that's reassuring. I think that's reassuring, and it's a good shout.
Let's talk about our video editing testing, and I know that there's a whole bunch of people that are getting fed up with hearing about video editing testing on a MacBook Air. Any thoughts, Pete?
People getting fed up with it. I suppose that's fair enough in some ways. When it boils down to it, and we'll touch more on this towards the end of the podcast, but a MacBook Air isn't really designed with Final Cut Pro in mind. I think it's fair to say. And the reason we've been testing it is because it's probably one of the more rigorous tests of the hardware to really understand where its limits are. But I can completely understand. I've seen some comments from ones who viewed the MacBook Air review we did the other day, where it's like, I'm more interested in, will it run Numbers, will it run Pages, will it run Office? To which the answer, of course, is yeah, it will run that, and it will run it all day and completely knock it out of the park. So to a degree, testing those things, although we did do some more rigorous testing with it and it came up good, is kind of not really pushing the machine to its limits. But I do understand that some people are a bit fed up with it, but we're interested in where it's going to take us in the future, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, and there just isn't any point in us running loads of tests in Office and these other things. If you're buying a computer to do general purpose computing, and we've said this a lot on the channel, but what we mean by that is you're using the Microsoft Office, you're sending emails, you're browsing the web, you're consuming content on YouTube, Netflix, whatever. If you're doing those kind of things, look, a MacBook Air, even an Intel one, is going to be absolutely fine for you. So the M1 MacBook Air is going to, it's got more than enough performance for you. So you really don't need to worry about it. And there just isn't any sense in us performing those sort of tests. So with that in mind, we're not for a moment suggesting that you should go out and buy a MacBook Air if you're serious about editing video. But we are still going to test it nonetheless. And the reason why is to see how the M1 chip performs, not the MacBook Air or the Mac Mini. It's how does the M1 system on chip perform for video editing? And we're comparing that MacBook Air with its 8 gigabytes of RAM to the Mac Mini, which has the 16 gigabytes of RAM and the cooling. So by extension, you could compare the MacBook Pro, because it's essentially the same as the Mac Mini, same sort of performance. So that's what we're trying to achieve here. So with that in mind, Pete, we're going to do some Final Cut Pro, and I suspect you'll probably take the lead on the Final Cut Pro testing.
Yeah, I'll be happy to do that. So we're going to try some different codecs. H.264 is one we'll be running. We've got some HEVC 10-bit, and a big thanks to, I think it's Graham, isn't it, for sending us some sample footage to play with there.
Haven't actually downloaded it, Graham, so don't delete it off your Google Drive just yet.
But we spotted it. We will get it. Thank you very much for that. And also some ProRes 422 and some permutations thereof to see what happens when you transcode media and things like that, because I'm curious to see. I'm going to do some fairly comprehensive testing over the next few weeks with that. Alongside, it just goes back to what we were saying earlier, I will be using the MacBook Air as my daily driver for work for a few weeks. So I will be testing some of the more run-of-the-mill day-to-day stuff, but it's not going to be the focus of what I'm doing. That's almost a background task.
So just for clarity on the codecs, why we're choosing these codecs because H.264 is a compressed codec, and it requires a lot of either CPU power to decompress it or a custom chip to do that. But it's what is commonly found. I mean, we're both using DJI Osmos for the video of this, and that's going to be H.264 8-bit color footage, and that's what the majority of consumer and even prosumer camcorders are outputting. Your Panasonic GH5 is H.264 as well, although it does have a 10-bit option. But so then HEVC or H.265, that's for higher resolutions, basically similar thing. 10-bit color, that adds quite a bit of complexity. Not that these computers can display 10-bit color, but if you record in 10-bit color, you've got more data there to work with, so you got more potential for grading. So it's something that professionals do, and it works the computer a bit harder. So that's why we're going to test that. And ProRes 422 because it's Apple's own codec, and this is what they've optimized Final Cut Pro for.
Yeah.
You know, it's all about ProRes, isn't it? So just, if you're not into video, it just helps you to understand why we're choosing those different codecs and what they might mean.
Yeah. Anecdotally, I did a bit of B-roll for the video we put out on, was it Thursday, where we summed up some initial thoughts between the MacBook Air and the Mac Mini, and I transcoded that all from H.264 to ProRes 422 before I started working on it. And again, I worked on it on the MacBook Air. Admittedly, it was a really simple bit of editing I did there, but that was buttery smooth. So that got me to thinking, how much difference will the codec make to the performance, and will that make a difference to the issues I was reporting the other day?
Excellent. So you'll test rendering performance, Pete?
So background rendering, stuff that's going on while you're working on the timeline, which Final Cut Pro, you can't turn it off, but it does that in the background while you're not doing anything. And then final rendering, we'll do some head-to-head stuff on that, potentially, different machines, different codecs. And then with different layers and different effects on, see how quickly it renders those as well. So again, I've got some ideas there to try and make it as fair as possible, and compare it to my daily editing machine, which is the MacBook Pro 16.
Excellent. And we've got the i9 iMac with a Vega 48 in the office with no one using it at the moment, so we'll update that to Big Sur and we'll run that into the comparisons as well. Let's just talk about our real world experience. So obviously we put that video up. It was Friday actually. We put it up on Friday, but we did the edit on Thursday, or when we were doing the testing. And, you know, we had issues with the MacBook Air, or you had issues, I should say, and it was sluggish, and you got to a point where it was getting difficult to work with. So we related that experience, and, you know, we've had one or two comments where people are wondering why we're saying something different to the rest of YouTube reviewers, you know, who seem to be saying that, you know, the MacBook Air 8 gig is fantastic for editing video. And so they're wondering why we're not waxing lyrical about it.
And they're even saying things, they're going further than that, saying, why would you need anything more? Which is quite a statement to make when people are perhaps making a decision about, should I lay down $1,000 on this machine or not, or should I stump for something a bit more beefy or wait a bit longer? So I think it's fair to say that that's a statement we wouldn't make flippantly or casually.
No, because people do go and buy gear off the back of the videos. You know, certainly the videos I've made about the 2013 Mac Pro, I know several people have gone and dropped a lot of money on a Mac Pro system or eGPU or even M1 Mac Minis off the back of watching our videos. So there's a responsibility there that we don't want to just, you know, be flippant in the information we give out. And the more viewers that we get, the more subscribers we get, the greater that responsibility comes. And, you know, we have to be careful. So the reason why we said what we said is because that's what happened. You know, that's what we experienced. We used the thing for 3-4 hours, and that was what we discovered. So that's what we told you guys. And I think, you know, at the end of the day, we did say, before the machines actually dropped, we did say that maybe we've got to think about RAM in a different way because of the way these systems use it. But just remember, in the 8 gigabyte version, 8 gigabyte version of the M1, that memory is being shared between the GPU and the CPU. And what a lot of people are saying, and I don't know whether this is true or not, but what they're saying is because the SSD storage drive in it is so quick, it's actually using that as a swap file when it runs out of RAM. And the simple truth is 8 gigabytes of RAM is not really enough for editing serious 4K content. You know, once you start getting into layers and effects and, you know, working the data, chopping it up, and in, especially Final Cut doing all of its background renders, it's writing heavily to the disk. And I don't think that you should be expecting a fanless MacBook Air 8 gigabyte model to be a great video editing machine for 4K footage. You know, it's not the right choice. If you are a video editor and you want an M1 Mac, I would get either the Pro, the MacBook Pro, or the Mini, and I would put 16 gigabytes in it. I think you'd be crazy to do anything but that. So I just that's that's where I'm at with it. And I think really, if you're a professional video editor, you wouldn't be actually looking at buying one of these yet anyway.
No, and that's so important to stress. We're reporting honestly back on it. I think I know you got a different view from this, Dave, but I really wanted that MacBook Air to absolutely slide through everything that I threw at it, and I must admit I was disappointed that it came up with the issues it had, because I just wanted it to work well. But even though that was how I wanted it to be, I wasn't going to just gloss over that and perhaps say, oh, well, yeah, no, it's really good. And I have to question all these ones on YouTube that are waxing lyrical about it. I have to question how thorough their assessment has been. Have they, spun up an existing project on the machine, moved through the playhead a little bit, maybe turned a few things on and off, and then rendered it out and based their conclusions on that? I don't know that that's the case, but it was 3 or 4 hours of solid editing, and probably, to be fair, something that would have taken me maybe 2 hours maximum on my normal machine. That's kind of how much it slowed me down in the end. And like I said earlier, I am going to be testing, was that just the limitations of the hardware, or was it another factor like the codec or something like that? Or the next...
It could simply be that we got a bad version. That could simply be an issue with that specific MacBook Air as well. I don't want anyone to misunderstand. We're not, crying foul at all of the other reviews that are out there, or, casting aspersions. Is that the right word? Casting. Anyway.
Yes, that is the right term. Yeah.
Yeah, we're not doing that. All we're doing is saying, look, this is what we experience. If other people didn't experience that, what were they actually testing? Do we know? Anyway, we've spent enough time on that. There'll be videos coming on Final Cut.
And maybe if I get the opportunity, just because you raise a good point there, I might even try it with the other MacBook Air we've got, the same project, and just eliminate it being that we've got a bad batch. And I've obviously got to update Big Sur to the 11.0.1 as well. So there's lots of variables, but we're just reporting what we find.
Yeah, that's good. So the other video editing that we're going to do is with DaVinci Resolve. Again, more video editing, but this is what people are asking us to do. The thing with DaVinci Resolve is that the current version 16, is not optimized yet for Apple Silicon. Now, that said, the last 2 videos that have gone up on the channel, I've edited on the M1 Mac Mini in DaVinci Resolve 16. Sorry, I tell a lie there. The last one that went up, I edited in full, and the one before that, you edited, but then you output it as a ProRes file, and we put it into DaVinci to do the final.
Yeah, we graded it and did the audio and a few other bits and pieces, topped and tailed it.
My experience was different to yours. I haven't had any issues at all. It's been completely fine to use. It's not mind-blowingly quick, but it wasn't dropping frames from what I could see. The render performance wasn't fantastic. I think it was rendering out on average at about 40 frames per second. But, I'd like to do more testing, and it's not an Apple Silicon optimized version. So I'd like to wait, ideally, until Blackmagic release version 17. So at the moment, it's in public beta. If it doesn't come out of beta in the next couple of weeks, then yes, I'll test the beta version. That's fine. But I'd like to wait for it because I've also pre-ordered the new Speed Editor keyboard.
Okay.
I have a Resolve Micro panel for coloring, so I'd like to test that from a peripherals point of view with the M1 Mac. I also then mentioned before my PreSonus Fader Port 8, but that actually works in a limited capacity with Fairlight in DaVinci Resolve, so you can do your audio mixing on that. So I thought that might be quite interesting from the perspective of, do peripherals work? I'll test the same codecs that you've tested, Pete, but I'm going to also then include Blackmagic Raw.
Okay.
Which I'll do off of my Pocket Cinema camera, which is the 4K version. If anyone out there has got the 6K version and wants to send some sample footage, again, youtube.com/constantgeekery. If you have a look on our main channel page and look for the business information, you'll find an email address. You can get in touch there. If you've got some footage that we could use for that testing, that would be great. And for my comparison machines, I definitely want to do a comparison with my 2013 Mac Pro here, because I know a lot of people are asking me for that, so I will include that. But to represent the more recent Intel Apple Macs, then again, we'll use that i9 iMac that we've got with the Vega 48. The other machine I've got in the studio is a 15-inch MacBook Pro with an i9 8-core in it as well. So we could test that. We could use your 16-inch MacBook Pro as well, Pete. So we'll try a few different things with DaVinci, and we'll see how we get on with that. And then, finally, we want to test the M1 Mini against my 2013 Mac Pro. And you might wonder why we keep coming back to this old Mac Pro computer, and it's simply because that's the other kind of thrust of the channel over the past year. I've been working with one of these old computers. Took it apart and done an upgrade. I've got an eGPU working with it.
It's almost the channel mascot, isn't it?
It is a little bit. I'm going to be.
You're never ever going to be able to get rid of that machine.
I tell you what, though, it's sorely tempting to sell it whilst the prices are still high. But I love it. I really love it as a computer, and I just think it's a fantastic piece of industrial design. I'm going to struggle. To get rid of it.
We're going to have to give it a name now. You know that, don't you? We're going to have to give the Mac Pro a name, a mascot channel mascot even.
Well, perhaps our listeners might come up with some ideas for names. We'll see how we get on. In any case, lots of regular viewers and subscribers are asking for that content, so that will also be included. And in the space of the last half an hour, Pete, we've laid out this kind of massive plan of loads and loads of videos, and the simple reality is it's going to take us time to produce all of this stuff.
It really is. I think the comments we get, guys, we really appreciate how positive and complimentary and constructive your comments are. They are so good. They keep us going, and that's because hopefully we're generating content that you find of value. But to do that, means we can't just pedal it out at a rate of knots, because otherwise it becomes meaningless. So it takes time, and we want that to be accurate. We want to do it thoroughly so that you've got what you've come to like from the channel, which is accurate reporting rather than sensationalism or anything else.
No, I want to linger on this, Pete. We're going to put everything in perspective in a moment, but this is a big change to computing. This is a big thing that's happened. I don't want to just churn out a few videos. We're not in the process of regurgitating content, basically saying the same things over and over again. We don't really want to do that. We want to add value. We're not just making content for the algorithm. There are plenty of channels who've produced less videos than us that are doing much better than us in terms of subscribers. But for me, it's what we are. It's methodical, it's accurate, and we want to take our time and enjoy this transition. Now, this is not because we think that these M1 Macs are the end of the line and the last word in computing, because they're just not. You go and build yourself a PC with one of these new Ryzen chips in it, or one of the top Intel chips in it, and honestly, it's going to destroy the M1. And the M1 just doesn't have the horsepower to compete. You've got to remember this is an ARM architecture, so they call it an 8-core CPU, but in there's only 4 high-performance cores. So yes, what it achieves with those cores, that's absolutely phenomenal, but it's not going to compete with a 16-core Ryzen processor, is it, for multi-core performance? I'd expect the Ryzen 5950X to be in the order of 4 times quicker for a multi-threaded task. And what we're seeing as well is that these things, the M1 performs well in benchmarks, but in real-world tests, that can be a little bit more variable. And the machines that it then beats in the benchmarks, it's not beating in these real-world tests. Depends what they are. Because the M1, of course, is all about optimization. Optimization of software and hardware. And so if you stray outside of that tight optimization, then limitations are found, if we're truthful.
Yeah. And that's not taking anything away from what Apple have achieved here, or what it bodes for the future. It's it is a very exciting time. We've said on numerous occasions, these machines, these M1 machines, are game changers, and they are because of what they represent for the future. But they are not the be all and end all, and you've got to assess that depending on what you need. So if you were a pro, for example, looking for buying advice, lots of people are asking us, should I go for an M1? What will we say to them?
I'd say wait till the next batch. If you're a pro, I don't think any pros should really be buying these now. We're pros, but if it weren't for the YouTube channel, I wouldn't have bought.
No, we would have waited for sure.
Well, we'd have probably
going down so well.
Is it? That's good. My whiskey's going down well as well. We would have bought one for testing, and the reason why we're doing that is because we need to know what we're facing because of equipment renewals. If we're in the Apple ecosystem, we need to know: do we need to get some more Intel Macs in before they get rid of them all, or are we okay going with Apple Silicon? So we had to get one in to test that stuff out anyway. But other than that, why would a professional take a risk like this? New operating system, new hardware, new architecture. That's not sensible if you rely on your computer to make money, unless you've got another machine as well. So this takes nothing away from the M1. Not trying to be negative about it. We are absolutely blown away by these computers because of what they can achieve, but we're blown away within a framework. We're for the type of computers they are and the price that you're paying for them, it's astonishing. I mentioned that 5950X Ryzen chip. Well, in the UK, assuming the retailer isn't trying to scalp you, which most of them seem to be at the moment, then it's a 700.
That never happens.
Unfortunately. Oh, it's a £750 CPU. Well, you can get a Mac Mini with an M1 chip for the same price.
£50 for a chip, just for the CPU.
Yeah.
Wow. That does put it in context, doesn't it?
Yeah. So these M1 machines are punching well above their weight, and they are amazing. But if you rush out to buy one, you'll be blown away again by how quickly the apps open and how smooth it all feels. But once you get into your day-to-day work, writing your Word documents, filling in your Excel spreadsheets, sending emails, looking at things on the web and all the rest of it, it's not really going to be any different from any computer you've used before. So I'd hate for someone to rush out and spend their money and then have the novelty wear off,
Yeah, except if you're on Zoom all day, then I did another battery test on that today, and that was great. And I am going to be doing some Teams testing this week. Because we've got a web studio to run, we've got a digital agency to run, as well as doing all this. So in my daily work this week, I will certainly be using that in anger, and I'm going to resist the urge to have the USB-C plugged in. I'll run it on battery and see how long we go for.
Yeah, it is a good point. Actually, the battery that's a phenomenal thing. So anyway, those are some of our thoughts after using these things for about a week. That's all it's been, Pete, a week, and I'm absolutely
busy week.
I'm shattered. I've got to be honest. We've put out 3 videos this week, and and the podcast actually. So I think the viewers need to understand that. So we've mentioned this already. We have this business. We've got more than 30 staff who kind of rely on us to look after that company because they're quite keen on getting paid every month for some strange reason.
They do like that. They do like that. Understandably.
Understandably. Absolutely. They're such a lovely bunch. Honestly, we couldn't have better people working for us there. It's like a real family. But maybe we'll show you more of that in future videos. Perhaps in a 10,000 subscriber update, we might show you a bit of the studio. I lost my train of thought completely there. Where was I going with all of this?
We're busy.
It takes a lot of time. Yeah.
And I think it's important to say we're not complaining about that. This is a project. The Constant Geekery channel is your channel, Dave. It's something you started, and it's something you've worked hard on. And the swell of goodwill and comments from subscribers is so appreciated. It's really good. So it's not in any way complaining. It is just saying, please bear with us, because it just takes time to do it to the standard that generates those comments. I think if we were to try and do it at any quicker rate, the quality would drop, and then then you perhaps wouldn't feel the same way. So bear with us. We will get to it all.
Yeah, and we'll get better at this. Thanks, Pete, for clarifying that. Yeah, absolutely not complaining at all. And I did say this, actually, when I hit 1,000 subscribers, I thought I'd do an update video. I actually took myself down into the woods, Pete, near my house, and I did this update video. I absolutely knackered up my arm holding my camera out, doing a sort of a vlog style thank you video. And when I got back home, I found that the microphone had been switched off the whole time. So that footage never saw the light of day, and I ended up doing a 1,200 subscriber thank you video, which hardly anyone has watched. But what I did say in that is that the channel has been a creative outlet for me at a time when I really needed it. Something that Pete and I have been going through, and maybe this is something we can talk about in the future if you guys actually want to hear about it or are interested in it. But you get to that point in your business where it's been reasonably successful. We hired a new managing director, and we've taken a bit of a step back, I think it's fair to say. And for me as well, always being a developer, always being creative, always doing things, to kind of step back from that, you deal with these feelings of obsolescence. And that's quite hard to take. And so for me, I needed a creative outlet, and that's really where the channel came from. And I am so grateful that I've been able to do that and that people have enjoyed the content. And that is reward in itself. This is not a financial thing. I mean, it may become a bit more of a business in the future, but the money that gets earned by the channel is inconsequential, really. I mean, it's about doing something where you feel of value, helping people. That's why I like to interact in the comments section. I like to help people out with their computer problems as much as I can. I'm finding it harder and harder to keep up, if I'm honest, but I do try. I do read your comments, and I appreciate them very much. It's genuine. When I reply to someone and say thank you, it's because I mean it. I really do appreciate it. And before I sort of well up and start sobbing, Pete, I think we probably ought to call this episode to a close, haven't we?
Probably should.
Yeah.
So just to reiterate, if you're listening to this, I'm just going to go with this, Dave. If you're listening to this on something other than YouTube, your favourite podcast channel, we are trying to get to our subscriber goal of 10,000 by the end of this year. So if you can pop over to youtube.com/Constant Geekery and subscribe, that would be massively appreciated. And tell your friends that you think might be interested anyway.
Yeah, anyone who you think would be interested in listening to two sort of middle-aged, old
curmudgeonly
British farts waffling for nigh on an hour, nearly 54 minutes now. So
and drinking tea.
Or whiskey. Yeah, it's our unique thing. This is the Constant Geekery podcast. You've been listening to Dave and Pete. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. I hope you join us again next week for another episode. I've got no idea what we'll be talking about, but it will probably include some Apple silicon. I think it's fair to say.
Probably.
So we'll simply say thank you very much for joining us. Again, stay safe, everybody, and we'll see you next time on the Constant Geekery podcast.
Cheerio.